Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
I can, so far. So yeah.
Hi, Rania. Hello, Karim.
All good, all good.
All
How are
good.
you?
Very good,
Yep.
very good.
Rania, I think you're on mute. If you're happy, you can unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think I didn't allow attendee.
Okay, let me start
first,
with a movie.
You are now presenter. You can
Yep.
see that you can see the Q&A under.
I think we have 6 people in total for now.
No. I will admit that you have the Q&A is visible to you, Karim.
Yep. It is.
And Lucia, is there?
I can see Q&B. I also can share. So once you will press view lobby or allow other people to come, then I can start sharing the. Let me start.
So admit, I will admit now, or you will start first?
I would rather that you admit first, Rania, and let people in, because we are 6 now, and I think people are waiting. So admit
yes, people are waiting.
Yes.
So admit all first?
Yeah, admit all. I think so. What about you, Lucia? Yeah? Admit all?
Okay,
cool.
Let's start. Cool. Probably even without sharing the movie. Let's start.
Yep.
Okay, yep. I will admit.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Good. Yeah, the numbers are 14, numbers are getting bigger, so
okay. Let's start without any further delay. I think we can skip our movie because we have slightly delay. Well, small disruption. Small disruption. Okay. So let's start with the introduction. Salam alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you to AACE Egypt section to organizing it together with Australian section. My name is Lucia Vernon, and I was recently appointed as the regional director for AACE Region 7, which is our MENA region that includes Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE. In my professional life, I have been working as forensic planning director at Quantum Global Solutions, claims consultancy since 2013. And since that, I have been involved with AACE as volunteer. I had opportunity to join AACE conference in Atlanta 2 months ago, where I attended the presentation of today's speakers, Rania and Engineer Karim, who well represented our region with their technical paper, Practical Consideration for Substantiating Disruption Claim, and are happy to share their knowledge with us. This webinar is jointly organized with AACE Australian Section, and without further disruption, let's go to talk about disruption with a small introduction. Rania, could you please start sharing your slides?
Rania, you're on mute.
Will you share the video first, Lucia, before starting?
Well, I tried. I'm not able to share it, unfortunately.
Okay, we can, Wael can share it. Wael, can you share the video? Wael?
Can you just give me a second?
Okay.
I'm just opening the folder.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to start with thank you for everyone who's attending. And yeah, thank you for taking the time for listening for us. And we will be available throughout to answer all of your questions. And we'll start the presentations once it's available. Sorry for this glitch. It had a tick glitch at the start, but yeah, it happens every time. Like in a minute or two, we'll be ready.
Well, there is no voice.
Back to you.
Okay. So Lucia, you can.
Oh, can I run the little introduction? Okay. Okay, so I met Rania and Karim in Atlanta, as I mentioned. So if you can move to your CV profile, please, so we can a little bit know about you. So Rania has a 20 years more experience in the construction industry. She's a senior contract manager at Hill International North Africa. She's vice president of AACE Egypt Section, Middle East and North Africa, MENA, part of the group of AACE Women in Project Control Committee. Also, she holds a PhD degree in construction engineering achieved at American University in Cairo. She has LLM in construction and arbitration law degree. She has master and bachelor degree. She is fellow of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And she also holds PMP certification and currently working as an assistant professor at Faculty of Civil Engineering also. I don't know, when did you have time to achieve all this at your young age, Rania?
Rania, you're on mute.
She is
Thank
constantly
you.
muting
Lucia.
herself. I think you wish me to talk all the
Lucia.
time. Yeah. So
thank you, Lucia, for presentation.
Second presenter for today is Engineer Karim, who is a planning and interface manager in Wensia, Melbourne, Australia. So he's joining us from Australia, but he previously worked in our region in a project management consultancy in KSA and also for the main contractors. He holds professional certification as a professional engineer, Engineers Australia, PSP from AACE International, PMP from PMI, MCIR, and bachelor degree in civil engineering. So welcome our speakers, and without further delay, please go ahead.
Okay. So the main outline of our presentation today is introduction to disruption, challenges improving disruption claims, challenges and quantification of disruption claims, inefficient planned works versus disruption, and practical consideration and application of methods calculating disruption damages. First, the introduction. Disruption, as defined in Society of Construction Law Protocol, is a disturbance, hindrance, or interruption to contractors' normal working methods, resulting in lower efficiency. So disruption claims are related to loss of productivity in the execution of particular work activities. So because of disruption, these work activities are not being able to be carried out as efficiently as planned. However, loss of productivity as defined in AACE recommended practice is experienced when the contractor is not accomplishing its anticipated, achievable, or planned rate of production. Simply, the contractor is producing less than its planned output for work hour of input. So the contractor is expending more effort for unit of production than originally planned, which results in loss of money to the contractor. Disruption claims are different than prolongation claims. So prolongation claims are involved to losses and costs because of the delays in the activity in question or the work as a whole, which results in critical delays to the project completion date. However, disruption claims are involved with additional costs and expenses due to the extended or disrupted periods of activity, which may not affect the project completion date. Disruption can be caused by a variety of events. Some are excusable, some are neutral, and some are non-excusable, such as variations, schedule compression, out-of-sequence work, schedule overmanning, excessive overmanning, and overtime. Challenges in proving disruption claims. Actually, the contractor, to prove disruption claims, first he should prove to establish entitlement or contractual right for recovering disruption damages to the degree of certainty required or demanded by the decision maker, even though the general cause or causes of disruption may be simple to appraise. The second, the contractor should provide adequate evidence for causation, the relationship between damages and entitlement. Although in all cases, the contractor, only the amount of disruption caused by the owner can be compensated to the contractor. Actually, there are a lot of challenges in proving disruption claims in construction, but today we are going to concentrate on the main 6 challenges in proving disruption claims. The first challenge is late observation of disruption. Disruption is different than delay that its presence may not be immediately obvious, so the contractor may not notice loss of productivity until, for example, financial reports have been prepared. And this may happen after the work has been disrupted and important information had been lost. In addition, work disruption in the interim are most likely caused by subcritical delays, which are not taken into consideration in the critical path analysis, which address the delays to the project completion date. So the recovering of damages or losses due to disruption caused by subcritical delays may not be aided by securing extension of time claim. To put it simply, prolongation cost, which are related to extension of time, deals with indirect resources, those which are required for the extended durations of the project. However, disruption deals with direct resources, those which have been interrupted because of loss of productivity. The second challenge is identifying causal linkage. The mere fact that the disruption to the contractor's scheduled performance will not give automatic entitlement to payment. So disruption owing to each cited cause need to be specifically identified, supported, and proven. To put it another way, some disruptions are not compensable, such as those which are brought out by the contractor's own action. For example, incorrect scheduling, poor site management, or out-of-sequence material delivery. Actually, this is the standard form of defense to the contractor's disruption claims. So for the contractor to secure successful disruption argument, he should specify instance in which the owner violated specific provisions of the contract, or instance in which additional expenses are expressly stipulated under the contract. The main challenge here is that the challenges and expenses to specify each source of disruption is difficult and quite high. So this may lead to claims more global in nature. Actually, these types of claims will not be supported by the courts, at least in part. So if it lacks demonstration or didn't provide evidence for the relationship between cause, effect, and entitlement. In addition, or on the other hand, contractor may accelerate at the same time as productivity loss brought on by disruption, and this is subject to different entitlement criteria. The third challenge is cumulative impact and ripple effects. Actually, disruption may have single or multiple effects. Also, loss of productivity may have an effect on another activities, depending on the relationship between the disrupted activity and its predecessor and successor activities. So the most frequent source of disruption are variations, which result in both loss of productivity and further changes. So at this stage, for example, for variation, the cumulative impact and ripple effect provides more concentration into the relationship between a change, disruption, and loss of productivity. So, for example, the changes in the scope of work of the main contractor may affect or may negatively affect the execution of the scope of work of subcontractor. At this stage, the main challenge is to differentiate between the individual effect and overall effect of all events taken together. The fourth challenge is exclusion of various forms of disruption. With the majority of the contract expressly excludes various forms of disruption so that the contractor may be granted extension of time due to the impact of the loss of productivity or disruption in accordance with the contract. However, the contractor remains responsible for recovering of the associated costs. These types of disruptions, such as those brought on by natural disasters, exceptionally adverse weather conditions, strikes, and shortage of supplies. The main challenge also at that point is that the courts emphasized that for extension of time to be granted, contractual language should enunciate that such disruption, even though they are not compensated, they should be unanticipated and beyond the fault and control of the contractor or its subcontractors. The fifth challenge is claim for planned progress versus actual progress. Basically, to calculate compensation due to disruption is to put the contractor in the same position financially as if the progress of the work hadn't been disrupted. So for the contractor to demonstrate or to provide causation, he should demonstrate disruption to actual progress, not planned progress. Actually, most of the contractors fail to prove entitlement for disruption claims because they attempted to claim the difference between as planned and the actual manpower productivity, due to lack of sufficient records to demonstrate actual effect or actual expenses and cost caused by disruption events. Actually, this is the most common challenge that faced contractors in proving disruption claims. The sixth challenge is disruption to managerial staff. As we said, that disruption is related or concerned with direct resources, those which are exposed to loss of productivity. However, in some situations, managerial and other staff members may experience disruption in addition to the direct staff, as since they may be perform additional tasks or they may be taken away from their original duties. So the contractor at that time should prove both that the disruption event caused the management time spent in question and how much of that time was disrupted. And this by providing instance or maintaining records for the time the management spent in certain projects, for example. The challenge in that is that the course also necessitate or emphasize that if certain evidence, for example, that the incident causes business disruption, wasn't presented, the claim might be rejected in this basis. Assuming that the contractor succeeded to prove the entitlement for disruption claims and that evidence is given and it is compelling, there is still the contractor remains face challenges or they remain challenging to measure and justify the financial impact of disruption. Today, we will present the main 4 challenges in quantification of disruption claims. The first challenge is availability of cost data. Availability and the application of cost data are the most challenging in quantification of disruption damages. So in construction projects, the common is that payroll cost data may be released weekly or even monthly and charged to accounting cost code. However, quantity information such as craft times or amount of production completed are checked less regularly and frequently not recorded as part of the conventional accounting process. So the main challenge at that point when calculating disruption damages is incorporating this massive amount of data into the productivity analysis connected to disruption. The second challenge is lack of contractual provision. Most of the contracts don't specify how disruption costs can be calculated. So at that, it differs according, the acceptable approach differs according to each jurisdiction. So for example, under English case law, the contractor can attempt to claim for the difference between the amount allowed under in the tender and the actual amount of work accomplished. But this method depends on 2 assumptions. First is that the amount authorized for the work at the time of the tender was accurate, and that the contractor managed the construction operation efficiently. However, if any of these 2 assumptions is not correct, this leads to inconsistent results and unsuccessful disruption argument. On the other hand, under the US case law, the most acceptable method for calculating disruption damages or loss of productivity is a measured mile approach. This approach depends on comparison for identical activities in impacted and unimpacted sections of the project in order to calculate loss of productivity due to the impact of well-known set of events. Although the measured mile approach is the most popular or most acceptable method under US courts, however, in some situations, it cannot be used. For example, if the disruption is significant throughout the project, or that the tasks are complex, so it may not be typical activities that allow for like comparison to calculate loss of productivity or to calculate productivity rates. Also, it may not be feasible to establish baseline productivity level if the contractor hasn't kept site records. The third challenge is the accuracy of cost data. Contractor losses due to disruption includes the effect of loss of productivity, as well as the additional direct expenses due to the additional work caused by disruption. For the contractor to analyze the effect of loss of productivity, the contractor records are the most reliable source. So frequently, the contractor would construct a separate job cost account just for the impacted activities. These records should be carefully examined to assure its accuracy. In practice, these records should have answers or specific answers to the following questions. Are the labor categories consistent with the affected activity? So, for example, if the disruption affected the construction of reinforced concrete activity, so the cost record should demonstrate that the loss of productivity is related to labors which are relevant to this to reinforced concrete activity, such as formwork or labors or steel fixers, but not irrelevant to this activity, such as MEP or plumbing labors. Second, do material charges represent true excess cost, or do they include the original scope of work? So, for example, if the disruption event caused wastage to particular material, so this wastage or the cost of this wastage should exclude the costs of the original wastage or excess of this material. For example, the ordinary wastage for tiles is the
You're muted, Rania.
sorry. The losses due to this wastage should be included in the original scope of work and the original contract price, and should be excluded from the wastage due to disruption. Third, are the costs incurred in the appropriate time period? This is a very important question to prove causation. So the cost record should prove that the time periods related to loss of productivity is relevant to the time period where the disruption event occurs in order to prove the relationship between cause and effect. Are the costs reasonable? Actually, the contractor, to secure successful disruption claim, he should exclude any other costs not related to loss of productivity. The fourth challenge is categorization of the cost data. So the pricing contractor cost structure must be carefully considered when calculating damages due to disruption. So as mentioned, or according to SCL protocol, the objective of disruption analysis is to prove loss of productivity and hence additional costs and expenses over and above that would have been incurred if not for the disruption event for which the employer is responsible. So the big challenge aspect in construction cost control is measuring and tracking the work hours and the production in sufficient detail in order to allow for analysis of the data to determine the root cause of poor labor productivity. So this analysis or this assessment should include direct cost, indirect cost, as well as overhead and profit. Generally speaking, this cost should fall into three categories. One of nature, independent of the quantity of the work or the duration of the project, such as mobilization and demobilization. Those which are linked to quantities of the works and project duration, such as labor, material, equipment, maintenance, and those which are purely time related, such as rental cost and site security. Now I will leave the floor to Karim. Karim can start.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Yeah, here we're going first to go the practical considerations of disruption. But before going to the practical consideration of disruption, I have personally went through heaps of things which was inefficiently planned, but it's still confused as disruption. So before even going and explaining the recommended methodologies, what we are going to use for disruption using AACE Protocol 25R-03, we are going to explain in a simple example how an efficient planned work should be differentiated from disruption. Go to the next slide. I'll share my screen on you, please. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, I give you a remote control. I give you control.
Oh, just give me a minute.
Can you?
Yeah, I give you. Still, I can't move between the slides.
So, do you like to share?
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
I would share. I would share them. Yep. Hope everyone sees my screen now. All good?
Yes.
Everyone can see the screen? All good. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, to explain the inefficient plant works, Still, it's not moving. Sorry for that. Happens all the time. I just need some time. Moving somehow. Okay. We will go through a simple example. That simple example, we had a culvert. The culvert was a 2-day job. It's very simple, working in a maintenance project, and we have only 2 days to finish the job. The 2 days were easily to take a sample from there, make some concreting, and leave the job. But for the culvert and the nature of the culvert, it's beside the sea. So we should always be careful about the tides. We should always make sure that we work on the low tides to make it easier for us to add the sandbags, bulk bags, or whatever ways we are going to use to divert. So an easy job of just 2 days, which is like a very easy and simple, but it was planned, if you can see my mouse, or if you can see the blue arrow in here, it was planned that only works would be from the low tides. So the low tides is represented here by the dark green, while the lowest tides is the darker green and the low tides is the light green. You can see from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. that represents the lowest tides, and from 12 p.m. up to 2 p.m. that represents the low tides. So basically, we're saying that night work should happen, and in the blue arrow, which is from 9 p.m. up to 12 a.m., that would be preparation works, adding bulk bags, adding sandbags, diversion of water, making all of the safety precautions. And the next 2 hours of the shift would be basically demobilized partially from the site for the next days. So it was supposed to quick plan, finish in 2 nights, and get out, and work has been finished. But what happened actually was that it took 4 days, not even 4 nights, because the contractor simply, subcontractor in this case, where I was working at the main contractor, subcontractor simply, instead of doing the night works as planned, the contractor basically continued with the normal day works. But if you look at the chart, there is no low tides. He didn't utilize any of the lowest tides. So basically the contractor worked on high tides, which made it difficult. It's made it unsafe as well, and it took more time that you have to divert the water. The water levels were high, and then later on the contractor said that this was disruption. But again, after reviewing and each and everything, we had to convince, because the contractor, for subcontractor, this work, it almost cost double of the labor, double shifts, double even of the material, double of the rent of the equipment, double of the rent of sucker. So it took way more than planned. So claimed that, okay, we need double of the amount because we were disrupted, but actually there was no disruption in this case. So we will go to the practical consideration on how to apply methods of calculating disruption damages. We are going to use the method that's mentioned in AACE, which are categorized. First categorization, we have the project-specific studies, which is like, and this categorization is done in AACE 25R-03 based on level of precedence. So if you see here measured mile study from the start, that's the most favored and the most used as well. Earned value analysis. When we say most favored, it's basically most favored by the courts based on the previous case law studies, based on the previous studies in different states. Measured mile has gained approval. And then we have the earned value analysis, work sampling method, craftsman questionnaire, sampling method. And then we will go to another categorization in total, which is project comparison studies, using comparable work study, comparable project study, specialty industry, cost basis. We have another category, and we will speak in each and every one. And productivity impact, which is surprisingly, I believe that many, I don't know, may like it or may not, but many think that the schedule impact is one of the main methodologies to do the disruption, while actually it is the last methodology recommended by AACE-RP. So we will use throughout all of these scenarios, throughout all of these methods, we will use a typical scenario, just the normal typical scenario, 1 night shift, and we will go and apply most of the scenarios that have been mentioned in here. So the typical scenario is simple road closures for asphalting and resurfacing. That's simple road closure. The simple road closure would start from night shift, from 9 p.m., and we have to open it by 5 a.m. sharp. It's like you are not going to get the memo of authorization. You'll not get any like allowance to go past 5, and you cannot even start before 9 p.m. because like basically this is the off-peak hours, and you have just to close the road, do your resurfacing, and it has to open in a way which public could use. So in a typical night shift for resurfacing, especially like if it's a maintenance works and the contractor has been doing it for longer time, so the typical night shift would be mobilization, setting up. We'll have 2 hours of mobilization and setting up, doing the traffic control, applying all of the traffic devices on the road, making the detours, having everything in place, doing even the pre-start, having the equipment come in. So it takes almost 2 hours. And the actual direct hours from an 8-hour shift would be 5 hours. As you see here, it would be from 11 p.m. up to 3 a.m. And then 1 hour for demob, taking the traffic control device and opening the road. And that's critical. That's really critical. We cannot go past this. So the works were basically for the state. On one night, while doing the mobilization and setting up, and after consuming 2 hours for the mobilization and setting up, a TBM movement comes. If anyone is not familiar with the TBM, it's tunnel boring machine, or assume like any oversized or super load movement that comes up. We're talking about 5-meter width or even further, or up to 6-meter, and height of 5-meter and 40-meter length. We're talking about a huge thing, which will take more than one lane usually. The lane ranges from up to 3.75 linear meter. So we're talking about it almost takes to 2 lanes. So and in a typical road, what we are going to do was just only a 2-lane road. So whatever you have to demob for the equipment, the large equipment for which is used by the state in a different project. You basically have to demob everything, remove the equipment, and then come again. And then as you see in the second chart in here, you'll see that after doing the mob and setting up, oversized truck came, people on site took the decision that they have to demob to allow for the oversized truck movement. It cannot stay there forever. It's for another project. And it took almost 2 hours for the oversized truck to move and reset again. So the decision was taken around 12 a.m. to cancel the shift. And the decision makes sense because they cannot open the road part ways. They cannot do half of the road and then open it and do the next half the next day. That wouldn't happen, and this wouldn't be allowed at all. So the decision was to cancel the entire shift. We'll go through the first and the most loved and the easiest and most favored as well by the course, the measured mile approach. We'll use the numbers here. So we'll take activity A as the disrupted and activity B as the non-disrupted. Both are resurfacing works, and we'll look at how it was planned. So the planned square meters we have for night 1, where we have a good weather. By good weather, it's not drizzling, it's not wet, it's not windy, or like 50K above or 40K above. It's not windy, that the equipment and the labor could work safely in a safe environment to lay the asphalt. So activity A, the disrupted, the planned was 1,100 square meters per night. So the total is 2,200. And if you have a look at the green, you will have the first night would be 1,100, second night 1,100. That's an assumption of a linear distribution, more or less. And remember, this 1,100 is done on the direct works of only 5 hours. But the actual, because of night 1, the decision was to cancel the shift. The actual was almost zero. Like it was not almost, it was actually zero, because what they did consume the shift, and the payments there's a minimum payments to pay for the subcontractor. The equipment was there, so there was payments that have been done for the traffic control, for the asphalting team, and for everyone. There was payment there, and it was actually 0 meters square. If you look at the night 1 and the actual for activity A disrupted. Night 2 went pretty well and went as planned. So night 2 done 1,100 meters square. So this basically could act like a milestone or a mile that you can say, okay, we can not even wait for another night, and we can compare within the activity itself. For a similar activity like that's planned. So we did 1,100, so we can compare against. And when it was shifted, if you look at night 3 and night 4, that's bad weather. So it was drizzling. It's not a favorite condition to work. The work had to stop sometimes, move, windy, etc. So the productivity was not the best. So assuming it finished like by night 4, so the 1100, assuming again linear distribution between the two nights, so it is almost 550 per night. So only making the conversion and applying the measured mile approach in this one, we can even compare night 3 and night 4 with night 2. No need even for activity B, which we're going to talk about later. But we are just comparing, okay, if things worked as planned, more or less, we would have finished in 2 nights. But because of the movement of the oversized truck on night 1, we didn't work on night 1, and we did incurred costs. And still, we shifted into night 3 and night 4 for bad weather. So we had a loss of productivity in this way. We go to activity B. If we compare an activity B, it's very tough to find an activity with similar conditions. We always choose like the activity with the most similarities. We'll take, let's say, activity B was because again the project was maintenance works and reasphalting for resurfacing for a lot of roads, 2,300 square meters. So it's done in the good weather conditions. So it's done what's planned, which is around 1,150, and it's done what's planned. Or you could even, if it's way more than that, but achieved to manage 1,000 above, this can be used as a measured mile as well. So that's the measured mile approach. Applying the same exact scenario, but using the earned value analysis approach. And why we use measured mile or earned value or etc. It's based on what we have, based on the data that we have, based on the time we are doing this disruption claim. Is it forensically? Are we doing it like we are on the site, or is it like way after? And how it depends on everything. From choosing any methodology, not only this two, from any methodology we have, we can combine, mix and match later on. So the activity A that disrupted, the planned man hours. In here I took the numbers. I made it easy. I didn't take the exact planned man hours and cumulative planned man hours. So the planned man hours is 200, assuming 2 nights. Again, 5 hours direct works for each night. So it's 100 per night. The cumulative planned hours, the second row, you would see it. It would be 100 and 200. What actually happens is during the cumulative progress. The cumulative progress for the first night, because of the oversized truck movement, is 0. Night 2, because of the very good weather, so actually did what's planned for, which is 50%. Third night and fourth night, because bad weather, so 25 nights each, so the cumulative goes to 75% and 100%. The cumulative earned man hours in this case would be 100 for night 2, 0 for night 1, because no works. Yes, there was works and there was costs incurred, but no direct works, no productive works has happened during the first night. So the earned man hours is 0. Night 2 was 100 as planned. Night 3 cumulative, each took 50, so 150 and 200. So the daily actual man hours, if you look at the daily actual man hours in the first night, it wouldn't be 0 because there were stuff, the equipment was there, but they didn't complete the entire shift. But there was a minimum payment and etc. But they didn't even took the full shift. So instead of taking the 100 man hours totally, they took 60 and 0 productive hours, 0 productive man hours. Night 2 was 100. Night 3, although they didn't do, and they did almost 50% of their capacity, they did 100 man hours, and night 4 they wrapped it up easily to 90. So when we compare here, when we want to compute our cost and we want to compute and show our disruption as well, we can compare using the last column, the total man hours column. We can compare between the 200 and the 350 there. We'll use the work sampling approach. The work sampling approach is giving a percentage from each shift in this case. So we will have the works as mobilization, that's 25%, 62.5% for the direct works. So in every shift, only 62.5%, that represents the works that we're actually going to do the productive, and demob represents 12.5%. Using the scenario of the TBM movement in the next table would be the mobilization and setting up, which took 25%. The direct hours was 0, but the disruption came and took another 25%. So basically, you're talking 25%, which is partially demobilized and coordination to allow for oversized truck movement. That's 25% from 62.5%. So, and if you look at this alone, still someone not familiar with the project and not familiar with the type may say that, okay, we can do the 40% or we can do the 37.5%. But the case, we cannot base that we have enough evidence and enough documentation, because we cannot open the road halfway. The road should be clear, safe, and open for public. So again, but to show that the 25%, this means we could not do the works that we were planned to do through the night. So that's why the road cannot be opened. And 12.5% for the demob. So only looking at this, 62.5% has been in the night, has been wasted, which is somehow aligns with the 60 man hours, which we had in the last slide. One of my favorite, and which is the Craftsman questionnaire sampling approach. The Craftsman questionnaire sampling approach, usually, like, I wouldn't use it. It depends on a lot of things, for sure. There's a lot of criteria when we are going to use the Craftsman questionnaire. I wouldn't use it alone. I love to use it combined with different methodology, but it's just approach is a thermal questionnaire that you ask for the craftsman. Ideally, that you will be on the same site and in the same time and around the event, and because it will be the people would remember what actually happened. So you would basically go for the foreman, you'll go for the supervisor, you'll go ask the supervision team and ask the team what happened. And these are just samples. What you see in the screen are just samples of what questions can be asked. When does the work start every night? Do you remember anything? And you will be surprised by the answers once you approach them. You might find something, oh yeah, I have a photo for the TBM during this. I have a photo for a flat tire. You'll be surprised by the info that you get by asking. But first you have to prepare, and you have to prepare a very detailed questionnaire and be ready to have it even more, ask and go through several iterations and take all of the info that you could take during the questionnaire, which would help you in your analysis later on. And these are just samples. It differs from project to project, differs from situation to situation, even within the project. The comparable work study. We are moving as per the order of precedence as per AACE. The comparable work study comes in two forms. So the first form is activity A and activity B requires the same road closures if you read the note below, but activity A is resurfacing, activity B is something totally different. The direct works is different, but we're using the same road, which has a bridge. And by using the same road, we do the road closures, we do all of the supporting works, we do the same detours, we use the same traffic controllers, we use the same every support and demob, and everything is almost the same except the direct works. So that's why we separate between the support and the direct works. So basically, you have some kind of similarity in such case. So if you look at the activity A disrupted in the first form of disruption, you'll find that the planned man hours we used for similar works only. We're not going to use it for entire works, because the direct works is totally different. So for the similar works only, we are going to make the comparison. It's like mix and match. So the planned is 200, 100 first night, 100 second night. But the actual, if you look at the red, at the total man hours, is 600. And that's percentage, that's 300%. You were planned to do 200, you did actually 600. For activity B, which only has a similar works, has using the same detours and using everything, activity B, planned man hours was 200, but took 300. So by looking, it took 50% extra than planned. So when here you compare, you wouldn't compare, you say because of the disrupted and non-disrupted. If you have only activity A, you might say that disruption caused 200% extra. So it caused, instead of 200 man hours, we were disrupted by 400 man hours, but that's not true. Because if you look at the activity B comparing with the similar works, the 200 actually for the similar works took 300. So when you compare, you should compare the 300% and the 150, 600 and 300 in the man hours. So you'll have the total of the disrupted man hours that actually disruption happened was 300 man hours rather than the 400 man hours if you don't have activity B and using the similar works only. The comparable work study, the second form demonstration is basically doing the same, but a different subcontractor. While you have the similar activity, while you have activity A disrupted, resurfacing works, and activity B, resurfacing works as well, but a totally different subcontractor or a different contractor as well. So yeah, but maybe the same road or nearby road. So the activity A resurface would be 1,000 square meter and 1,000, and activity B resurfacing is 1,200. Here the direct works again is 5 hours and 3 hours for mob and demob, more or less. So for activity A, if we are going to use the 1,000 division by 10, which is the 5 direct hours per each, we would have 100 square meter per hour for activity for night 1 and night 2. Because activity A was disrupted, so 0 for night 1. But night 2, night 3, night 4, assuming linear distribution and the bad weather and everything, so we divide the 1,000 over that 3 multiplied by 5, which is 15, will give you 66.66 square meter per hour. So now we have a productivity, the planned productivity and the productivity because of the disruption. Activity B, the non-disrupted, we have a planned productivity of 100 square meter per hour as well. So 1,200, if we divide it by 15, it will give you like more or less 100. We have the planned man hours, 100 square meter per each. And in the last night, we wouldn't take a full shift. So using the same planned productivity as a main contractor and asking our subcontractors to follow, wouldn't take the full shift at 9/7, which we will pay just the hours that has been used, for sure putting in mind that we have to pay the minimum. Then in the actual, instead of the activity B resurfacing, the subcontractor finishing early and costing less, took entire night. So we have night 5 and night 6 and night 7. So if you divide 1,200 over 15, you will have like almost 80 square meter per hour. So you cannot, when you are going to compare, you're going to compare the 80 square meter per hour. Again, it's the 66.66 square meter per hour for activity B and activity A because of the consumption of the entire. Comparable project study, it's basically similar to the comparable work study. The only thing difference, it is like when everything failed within the project, but still you have similar projects, you will just try to compare, you will try to compare the similar project to this one. So the challenge is need for rigorous data collection and precise project matching and for ensuring reliability. I think there's someone in the chat saying something, so if Lucia or Rania would take care.
We will take care definitely, cool. But you can continue. Let's wait till the end.
Thank you. So yeah, we will go. The next one would be using the specialty industry approach. There is journal studies to support any case. Again, if like you don't even have the comparable work study, you don't have the comparable project study, so you'll have a specialty industry studies. So you will look at the studies acceleration. Wouldn't go through much in details. The RB is mentioning what studies to use, and it's not the most favored, and it's not even used this often using the specialty industries. But you can use the industry studies for the acceleration, learning curve, overtime, and shift work according to your situation. There's always a study that you can refer to. The general approach, and from the name, it would be more a general study for loss of productivity through numerous and non-specific causes. We wouldn't go even in details in this one. We cannot apply it unless there's a general case for the entire project, which we would go through. The cost basis method. The cost basis method, although it's like added in the order of proceedings, like just before the last, although it has been used most often, and it's easy to grab, and everyone feels like it's very easy to do. And I have seen heaps of case flows that's still using the cost basis method. It's easy for everyone to do it, and finance love it, definitely. So when we have the activity A, yeah, the cost basis method is basically looking at what cost we have, how we have structured. We have the total unit method. We're going to go through all of them now. But we'll look first at the activity A, which is the destructed, 1,000 square meter, and the activity B, non-destructed, which is 1,200. To make it easy for this table, we have the labor cost, subcontract cost, and the equipment cost. Every night almost costs the same. So the cost for every night is almost 16,000. For the first night only, there is incurred cost because people went mobilized, DMO, waited for the TBM, etc. So there is cost, but there is no works. So you will see it highlighted differently for activity A first night. That's 13,750. You will have at the other next column, the last column after the total cost, total unit cost, you will have 61.75, which is the total cost for the 4 nights, 61.75 over 1,000. And you'll have the total unit cost for activity B, 48,000 over 1,000, you'll have 40. So now you can compare the dollar amount, you can say, but because of the unit cost, what is 61.75, while it should be 40. So 21.75 is the difference that we can use for our claim. The total unit cost method is using the labor cost. So using just the previous table, we're using only the labor cost as per AACE recommended practice. So we are going to use 17,400 over 1,000. That's 17.4. Activity B, 14,400 division 1,200. That's $12 per square meter. So the cost difference would be $5.4 per square meter. So the difference is 1,000, which is the entire square meter of activity multiplied by 5.4, which gives you the 5,400. And that's how you do the total unit cost method using the labor only. The modified total labor cost method. This has been used as well in many case flows and in many cases. And the definition in the AACE is kind of different than what have been used in the case laws and the general understanding in the industry for the modified total labor cost owed. So the modified total labor cost owed, the exact definition as per the RP is total labor cost expended minus, we will subtract from it acknowledged contractor problems, and we will subtract from it total labor cost paid. We will explain the total labor cost expended in the next slide. But here, just to apply, to understand what the modified total labor cost owed means, we have an example. So this example is describing that the total labor cost expended, 450,000, that's additional works. Acknowledged problems, bed errors, 5,000 mismanagement, etc. That gives you 15. What's already paid, 420. So we have modified total labor cost owed, which is written below it, 450 minus 15 minus 420. We have 15,000. The total labor cost expended, it shows the comprehensive obligation or liability accumulated for labor, indicating the full scope of what's owed regardless of payment states. So it's basically like whenever you have a payment, you paid it or not, that's the total labor cost expended. But the general understanding is not like that. The general understanding and the case laws used is not like that. So here we have added one of the case laws which has been used recently as well. Not very recent, within the last 10 years, 2017, which is Bendel. Basically, use the modified total labor cost in a different scenario, and it's like based on the general understanding, which is the total labor cost estimated, which makes sense for the wider public as well. And we'll subtract from it the acknowledged contractor problems, and we'll subtract from it the total cost paid. So we look, basically, it's like, think of looking at for planners or schedulers or think of looking at the planned versus actual. That's for the estimation perspective. You look at the estimation labor cost. We have 4,800, 900. We have and the bid error was okay. We'll have used this example: estimation labor cost 5 labors for 2 nights. That's 4,800. That's a very simple approach to just explain the modified total labor cost. And then you have the bid error was 10 labors per night, so 9,600. And it's supposed to be 4,800. Acknowledged contractor problems then would be minus 4,800, and total labor cost paid, which is minus 17,400. And this is ideally when we say total labor cost paid, we're talking about totally forensically, which we already finished the event and we already paid. It's not like within, or it's like what we are expected to be paid, or etc. Ideally, we have this, or if we are very sure of the figures, and we'll make it like the total labor cost expended, etc. And we make sure that we have this change total labor cost to what we have currently. So this would give you minus 7,800. And modified total labor cost owed, although you can use it as a general approach, but that would be for more of a cumulative impact. Or you can still use it for a specific trade, which has been used actually in one of the case laws. It was for dry walls. You can still use, for example, dry walls the entire dry walls in the project has been affected, so we can use the modified total labor cost owed. Ideally, in all of the methodologies, the more specific or the more niche you can go, the better. That's the ideal scenario. And the more similarity when you are going to compare, that's the ideal for all of the methodologies that we explained, or any methodologies that even you want to do. So again, we'll have the last one, which is the total labor cost owed. The total labor cost owed as per AACE would be total labor cost expended. We'll subtract total labor cost paid, but the adjustment suggested to the RB would be total labor cost estimated minus total labor cost paid. Because this is not, and again, the estimation with actual cost is not usually favorable in litigation. It is favorable if everything else has been proven that's not working, and somehow this is for specific, and we have the right accounting records, and we have everything. So then it would pass through the courts, and there is case laws supporting even that, especially the modified labor cost. We'll go to the conclusion, and I'll hand it over to Rania.
Thank you, Karim. I'll share my Okay, so to summarize what we said today, first, the main considerations: improving disruption claims.
Rania, I can't hear you.
Okay, let us summarize what we said today. First, we would like to summarize the main considerations improving disruption claims. First, from the early beginning of the project, the contractor ought to establish a uniform system of capturing and recording field labor productivity information, and should compare the actual productivity with the as planned or as built productivity, and in case of variance between the actual and the planned productivity, analysis of causation should be made. Also, the contractor should review the updated schedule regularly and should analyze the subcritical delays in order to determine if it affects the rate of productivity in order to prove causation. In order to avoid claims more global in nature, which are not supported by the cores, so the contractor should identify each source of disruption with adequate evidence on a timely manner. Also, in order for the contractor to secure successful disruption argument, he should specify instance in which the owner violated specific provisions of the contract, or instance in which additional expenses are expressly stipulated under the contract. Only the amount of disruption caused by the owner may be compensated to the contractor. In case of disruptions with ripple effect or multiple impacts, such as variations, contractors should pay attention to differentiate between the effect of loss of productivity and the additional expenses or additional direct expenses due to further changes or additional works caused by disruption. Also, the contractor should differentiate between the individual effect and overall effects of all events given together in order to avoid global claims. In case the contract expressly excluded for various forms of disruption, so the contractor may secure such disruption by adding contingency to the contract price in case the likelihood of occurrence and the severity of such disruption events are high. Contractor also should pay attention in order to prove causation or to provide evidence, adequate evidence for causation. They should maintain records to demonstrate disruption to actual progress, not planned progress. And this is an important issue because most of the contractors fail to demonstrate entitlement for disruption claims because of this issue. Also, in case the disruption affected the indirect management staff in addition to the direct resources, so the contractor should maintain records to prove disruption to such indirect resources. On the other hand, the main considerations mentioned in order to quantify disruption claims, first, the contractor should maintain and check cost data regularly, including quantity information, such as craft times and units of production completed, and incorporate it on a timely manner into productivity analysis. Contractor also, as most of the contracts don't specify specific approach for calculating disruption damages, so contractors should consider and pay attention to the most acceptable approach under each jurisdiction. Also, contractors should carefully examine the accuracy of the cost records in order to assure that such records provide the required productivity information. Also, the contractor should consider the pricing cost structure and categorization of cost data in order to analyze and determine the root cause of poor productivity. Now I will leave the floor to Karim.
Thank you, Rania. Okay, so yeah, now I think after going through the end actually of this presentation, like disruption is not usually something that easy to prove. I would rather say that if you're working as planning or project control, not even in the forensic world, by knowing what should we do to prove disruption, I'm saying this even to myself, to like basically every now and then, whenever I remember, we always have to have robust documentation. We have to have everything possible that we definitely would not. Definitely, if you are in a bigger company and if you have a lot of softwares, this would be easier, but still some people don't use it. So we need a lot of documentation. We need a lot of to do the detailed analysis, to do everything that requires a lot of data. So always keep the documentation that's in every claims, but for disruption, it's like you have to look through a lot of heaps of data and have to familiarize yourself with different even sections. Treating the method depends on whatever the availability of data you have. You can mix and match as you can go, whatever data you have, whatever the event happened and the extent of this disruption. And when this event happened during the project, are you the one analyzing while everyone is still in the project, and you can have all of the data. You can do easily the craftsman questionnaire, for example, combined with another method. And as you see, you can just enhance some of the formulas like used and then prove it. You can even have go read for some case laws to have an idea how they approached it. There's heaps of case laws you can use it. Usually when people think, because that's I have seen it like heaps of time, including like people think delay more for some reason for disruption rather than costs. But actually, like it's all the other way around. It's when we are talking about disruption, we're basically talking about the increasing of the cost. It's not only labor as well. It's in equipment inefficiency, and don't even think labor and equipment. That's what's mentioned as direct. It's the indirect works. You have to think more of a cost perspective when you're analyzing the disruption, not only looking for the delay. And always remember, that's the first thing that I always remind myself to do, is always distinguish between poor planning. Is it properly planned at the first, or is it like poor supervision, or is it true and genuine disruption that occurred during this event? Can we go to the next slide, please, Anya?
Yes.
Anya. So the method selection, again, we say that we can mix and match. We'll go through like a summarize of each of every method that we already explained above. The measured mile approach, it's disrupted activity with a similar undisrupted activity. The earned value focuses more, and most planners and schedulers would love this one more, or cost control, even professionals, focuses on earned value and financial impact. The work sampling, it's basically making categorization. You can mix and match. You can mix and match each and every them to have even a better demonstration while you're demonstrating the disruption claim and demonstrating what actually happened during the project. Craftsman questionnaire, you can always add it to whatever methodology you can have if the people are available and if you're in the right time with the project. Project comparison studies, that's when everything like fails within the project, you go to the other project that you have ideally within the company. Yep. Next slide. Cool. So the total unit cost method that considers labor equipment should address all costs, not only just labor. Modified total labor cost method, basically adjusting for bed errors, making sure that the disruption calculation event for the cost is truly for the disruption alone, and consider using the total labor cost estimated rather than the expended. Total labor cost, which is just using the labor, like the inefficiency that has been happened for the labor. Critical path consideration is basically assessing how the disruption events and the impact on the schedule that did happen. Most planners or schedulers would love this one. And last not least, which is the integration with other methods, combining cost basis approaches with schedule, combine like several different methods. They say craftsman questionnaire, total modified total cost, together with the schedule impact. You would have all of this and continual refinement of disruption analysis. That's the need to evolve and changes in construction projects. By this, like, we came to the end, and we are welcome to questions from all attendees. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rani and Karim, for the session. I think it was very, very detailed. I'm glad so many people stayed still with us after heard so many disruptions. So let's go to the Q&A session with the questions. First question came from Tamer, which was, can you specify the exclusion of disruption? Can you give example or demonstrate of poor production? Who would like to take this question?
I just want to ask here, Tamer, what do you mean by exclusion of disruption? Can we open the you mean exclusion of disruption from the contract, or the excluded types of disruption from the contract? We can open the mic if you can.
Do they have the option to open the mic? I'm not sure. Like, if anyone doesn't have,
we can.
Because, so well, if
Tamer can classify it, and we can move on to other question then. There is another question from Mario, which is regarding the measured mile method. The planned production rate is always contexted. How many records do I need to establish the average production rate during good conditions? For example, the productivity loss during bad weather in the example you shared may be considered cherry picking to reflect the best production recorded by the contractor. I'm looking at it as an oven representative.
I think I'll take this one. So
I think that's more directly to you, this cherry picking, because you cherry picked few items. Yes.
Yeah. The idea of the measured mile approach. Measured mile approach, let's say it works perfectly well for small scope. I wouldn't say small project, because small projects you may have like $1 billion or extra $1 billion, and still the scope resurfacing of several works. So I would say the small or similar scope, that's the measured mile approach. It wouldn't work for a majority of works unless if you're, let's say, building a building and you have, for example, just a brickwork. Definitely you'll have a production rate which you can say during good conditions. If you don't have it, then you shouldn't go for a measured mile approach. That's the entire methodology debate, that you will have somehow, somewhere, you have done block works, for example, if you're building a building that was not disrupted and there was no events that would affect these works, so you can compare against it. Yeah, if Mario can, you feel free, please, to open your mic and speak whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone is not, would you like to add something, Rania?
No, I would, for this question, no, I would just, Tamer replied to our question for, you mean exclusion from the contract. Just I want to mention that disruption is not excluded from, means excluded from the contract, or disruption is not addressed in an express provision under the contract. But there are causes of disruption which may be excluded from the contract to be granted to be compensated in case of losses and damages. But the contractor may have the right to be granted extension of time for the impact, such as the bad weather condition or expressly adverse weather conditions, adversely weather conditions. The contract, such as FEDEC, give the contractor the entitlement to claim for extension of time in case adversely or exceptional adverse weather conditions. However, he's still responsible for covering the cost. He is not compensated for such type of disruption. So this is the exclusions of types of disruption from the contract. However, the contracts doesn't has express provision to how to deal with disruption, or what are the disruption events, how the contractor can claim for disruption damages. This is not expressly stipulated under the contract.
Yeah, that's correct. We can see only little or no time to mention disruption in a contract.
Yeah.
I guess nobody wants to calculate with the claim and disruption from the beginning of the job. Another question is, again from Tamer, can I calculate disruption cost based on pro rata or some preliminary items in BOQ?
Sorry, can you what? Can I calculate disruption cost based on
disruption
pro
cost
rata?
based
Pro
on pro
rata?
rata or some preliminary items in BOQ?
Tamer, I would like to clarify that the preliminary items or the general requirements deals with indirect resources. Okay. However, disruption deals with direct resources, labors, equipment, or material that have been disrupted or exposed to loss of productivity due to disruption. But they're preliminarily related with the indirect resources, such as the labors not directly related to specific activity, or equipment that are scaffolding, or that are used, or tower cranes that are used to the most of the project. However, disruption is related also to loss of productivity. So you should demonstrate the loss of productivity and calculate it. Preliminary items will not deal with loss of productivity, or it relates to the cost of the item, but it's not related to the productivity in this item. It's just lump sum item or per month, the cost, but not related when there is the productivity is this, then this, how it can be calculated. In addition, that it doesn't deal with direct resources related to the construction of the activity, the specific activity as well.
Yes, I came across this, like people are making a little bit of mix between indirect and direct cost.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
classic problem with which contractor has.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
but we
thank
can
you.
use indirect if related to management staff, as we mentioned. Sometimes a disruption in addition to the direct resources or direct labors affect another indirect staff such as managerial staff, and this may be happening sometimes. In this case, maybe we can use the preliminary items if we can conclude from it how productivity can be concluded from this.
Thank you, Rania. Another question we have, when as a contractor I need to raise this claim, what kind of document I should use? What is the supported document I should use to confirm my numbers used in a claim? In case work is in-house, not as a subcontractor. So I think we ran a comprehensive session on this, what kind of documents. But from the practical point of view, what do we suggest?
I would say basically, once you reach to a point where you somehow were able to claim, you have some numbers, whatever documents you used, that's a rule of thumb for sure. There's heaps of things. Whatever documents you used in order to put these numbers, I know that some may think it's confidential or not, but that you can give it to the court still. You can, whatever documents you used, just use these documents that you use for the claim. An example of such documents would be daily reports, would be photos, videos, would be financial reports, man hours, would be like, yeah, I see that your question is in-house, not a subcontractor. So you can still use, for example, the direct works, you can still use the schedule as well for like it took more days. You can use the daily reports. Every daily report we had this amount of bricklayers and they did this amount. We have this amount of conduiting we did for the electrical. You can always use whatever documents you use to figure out a claim. Just use the same documents. That I would say to use.
I would like to add to Karim. First, as Karim said, the main document we see in at the can demonstrate disruption claims is the daily reports. This we can conclude from it the manpower and the productivity. What are the production in each day? So you can easily find each day the difference in productivity according to the labors and according to production in each day for the same activities. So the daily reports is a very important point. But also to prove causation, as we mentioned in the presentation, there are different documents to prove causal link. First, the financial or cost records, okay, it should also demonstrate how losses, the financial report, how losses, rather than how losses or costs to such loss, such as the cost is different from the bid, excluding any faults by the contractor or any errors in the bid, but it can demonstrate the difference in the cost. The financial or cost records are very important data to demonstrate this. Also to specify the updated schedule is very important because it identifies the subcritical delays, which are the main cause in the interim to this loss of productivity. And it's easy to find on a timely manner to prove the causal link.
Okay, we have here a few more questions. I would say 2 minutes to end because we're running over time. How do you prove causation between the disruptive event and the loss of productivity? Cause and effect, the link between disrupted activity that's very often discussed.
Do you mean the relationship with cause and effect for the disrupted activities and loss of productivity, the difference?
How do you prove causation between the disruptive event and the loss of productivity?
I can prove this, as we mentioned, from the daily reports. As we can, our first causation, we should provide two things: the entitlement, the contractual right under the contract, where the merits, as we said, and also the causal link, okay, with the relationship between the event and the effect and the impact. So this can be demonstrated also through the reports, which can identify the difference in the productivity because of this event. So if we had, for example, multiple variations, okay, and the engineer instructed multiple variations, so this may cause disruption to the labors and yield to loss of productivity. This can be concluded from that such labors that are related to such instructions, how they can be impacted after the instruction. This is, for example, how this can cause delays in the in this activity in particular. So this from the documents also can be concluded. Also, the difference between the as planned and actual according to the disruption event. This is the main points for causation.
I would like to add to Amir's question. Basically, like to make it easy for everyone, like I guess, like think of always making like you're making a story. Basically, you have to convince someone of something that doesn't know anything about the project. So when you're making a story, like you have to somehow link, like for example, I'll refer back to the slides what we have used. Okay, now the TBM movement, you need to make causation. We'll say, okay, here's the planned works, and here's the actual dockets. We went to the sites, so here's the dockets. Here is the movement, which is planned officially, and it's like published somewhere. And the movement on the same route that we are going to do the route surfacing. So now you're trying to build the story. And now, once we started by 9 hours, we did the mob, demob. The mobilization took this amount. You can use photos, you can use etc. You can use industry standards, you can use expert witness to say that the mobilization took let's 2 hours. So now you're just trying to refer how this. Just always think that you're making an entire story to convince something that doesn't know anything about the project. Like this would make it easier if it will help.
Thank you, Karim. We have a few more questions. How does the approach to disruption claim differ in a lump sum contract versus cost plus contract?
And
I think that will be connected with the cost when you have lump sum contract versus a cost plus contract.
Yes, but I think it remains related to the schedule. So you should demonstrate disruption to the baseline of the schedule. So in lump sum, it does not differ in. I think it will not differ in lump sum or cost plus if the cause of the disruption event caused loss of productivity or delay on the baseline. As Karim mentioned, for example, the measured mile, you will see that in unimpacted areas and the impacted after the employer issued his instruction or the disruption event happened. So it's related to the records and it's related to the actual against the rest of the disrupted event. So I mean, it will not differ under lump sum or cost plus.
Yep.
But if you mean, but if you mean the cost is okay, it remains related to the amount of time spent in this disruption or due to the loss of productivity. So it will be calculated according to the amount the labor spent more in this productivity.
The actual cost.
So yeah. Amir, I would like to add, like for any claim as well, you would always start with the contract and end with the contract. You start with the contract first to see if you have the right to claim or not, because I have seen another question like time on margin, etc. First, you will start with the contract and check, okay, do I have the right to claim under such circumstances or not? That's the different contract conditions. But I believe, as what Rania said, that you're referring mainly to costs because of lump sum or cost plus contract. Basically, the approach wouldn't make any difference. Like if you're going to do the approach, because like once the only thing that you're talking, or you may think referring that you're using that estimated costs, If you have the estimated cost under the lump sum, you can relate it. If you don't, you'll just use it, the cost plus contract, and adding the profit percentage. But the approach, I don't see any difference between any of the approaches. Unless if you want to specify more, please feel free, open the mic, and we are here to answer the question.
It all depends how you will prove the variance in cost, how your claim is reasonable. You should submit the costs should be reasonable in case in the ordinary costs before disruption and the costs due to disruption. So it depends how you can prove your case.
Okay, let's go to one of the last questions. Can I claim a loss of efficiency and also loss of productivity due to a disruptive event? Is it possible to separate them?
Sorry, can you again?
Can I claim loss of efficiency and also loss of productivity due to a disruptive event? Is it possible to separate them?
Loss of efficiency in productivity means lower efficiency. The works are being carried out in lower efficiency because of the loss of productivity. But disruption, the difference, I don't understand the difference between the efficiency is related to lower efficiency is related to loss of productivity. So the laborers are working with lower efficiency. The production per the input or the work hour is less because of the disruption event. But what we should separate in disruption, because disruption has two impacts. First, the loss of productivity, but the other impact is that it may cause additional activities or additional works to be done because of the disruption, or as like the variation cause further changes, and multiple variations may cause further changes in addition to the loss of productivity. So in this case, the contractor should separate between the impact of loss of productivity and the direct cost or additional direct expenses because of the additional works caused by the disruption event. So this, I think, what we should differentiate. But the efficiency, I think it's the same meaning as the lower productivity.
Okay. Well, I have one of the last question, I think. We are going to run another session next week. So if anyone would like to have more questions, feel free to send it to Karim or Dr. Rania as well. They can get ready for next session, which we are running next week. And one last question from me. Karim, you imagine you are a contractor and Rania is an engineer employer. How are you going to convince her about your disruption claim? What do you think? How successful you will be to convince Rania to prove your disruption claim?
You're talking to me, yeah?
Yes.
If that would be a tough one. I'll tell you. I'll tell you from that. So, would you elaborate more? Because that's a very generic question. Like, how would I convince Rania?
Well, with any disruption claim, very often contractor will come with a disruption claim and the employee engineer will say, oh, there's not enough substantiation. Could you substantiate more and more? Which level you guys will go so deep?
There's two things here.
Yeah.
The first thing, I'll make it three things, and I think it will increase as I go. Yeah. So the first thing would be basically we have to have, or what I usually do, we have to have a very good read and understanding of the contract conditions, and rather than wasting our time for initiating even a claim process, which might not end well, or we might not have the right to claim. It's good to do it for other political reasons, etc., or just to prove something, or just to prove the good intention or the good photo, etc. But from the start, we have to make sure that we have the right to claim somehow for any contract conditions. That's why I always think we have to start with the contract and we have to end with the contract. in between, that's like my specialty, basically. What I would do, I'll just make sure that I would have each and every document I would review, like usually like I'm pretty sure like one claim recently might take like talking about 300 something pages, and it was a very minor claim as well. It was not like, I'm not talking about millions as well. So I would go through each and every daily report. I would just make like, I would always make the story. I would always love first to write a narrative of describing the scenario, how it went, and from how the scenario went, I would say, okay, refer to this daily report to check this one, refer to this, refer to visit this, and yeah, and I'll send it to the engineer, Rania, in this case. And later on, we will discuss a different item, which is the delay of determination. So this
I think now I will pass it to Rania. What she's going to reply to your disruption claim?
As the engineer, if I'm the employer, I will reject the claim. But if the engineer, I should make fair determination. But actually, as an engineer, the first I will see, as Karim said, we start with the contract and end with the contract. So he should provide evidence under the contract for this event. Also for the disruption or the impact of disruption. Also, the most important we are concentrating in disruption claim is the causation, because disruption always happen with different events. Okay, so to prove, to specify the main cause of disruption, this is the most important or the most difficult, the challenging, and this what make most disruption claims are global claims, because the contractor, it's difficult to specify each source of disruption within a lot of evidence, or delay events may happen. Okay, disruption, if it is not identified at the early stage or at its time, the time of occurrence, it would be very difficult to manage or the causation of disruption later on. And this
Definitely.
Maybe delay events, you can provide evidence for it later, or maybe it has continuous impact, or but disruption, it should be identified immediately when it happened. If this couldn't be achieved, so the claim argument or disruption argument may not be successful.
As an engineer, will you expect to receive a notice about disruptive event?
Yeah, it's important.
I would say I would comment on this one especially. It's according to the terms of the contract. Some terms says that even time barred without sending, and some doesn't. And there is a case law that didn't send the notice and it went through. So it's not a must. It's ideally to send the notice, but it's not a must.
Of course, it's according to the contract, what it mentioned, if it mentioned a notice to claim or not. Most of the contracts agree that the contractor should send a notice to claim, but some contracts, the notice is time-barred and some is not time-barred. But most of the contract is FedEx is time-barred provision. But the notice is important for other reasons, to save your right or to demonstrate. The notice is important to be for the engineer in order to revise the document, or to revise. It should be, as I said, disruption should be identified immediately, not as delay. To facilitate for the engineer to demonstrate your entitlement, you should send the notice immediately in order to facilitate reviewing or to identifying such impact due to disruption. The notice is important.
Okay, so we clear here. We clear here. We will never convince Rania without paper. So I think there is a message for the contractors, and yeah, this notice will help me as well. There is one more question: is about as the cost is main part of a disruption claim, should disruption be carried out by quantum or delay expert? Well, this is really battle for me, but it's a combination, I would say.
Yeah.
Definitely it's a join to identify. You need a planner to identify disrupted activities. on a project, and then you need a quantum expert to assign the money against those disrupted activities. So we we need to have a link between the cost and the activities on a site or which got disrupted. That's I will answer. Anyone else?
Yeah,
I
I
think we
agree with
didn't
you.
answer. I think we didn't answer. There's few questions down below, Basant and Tim. Oh, Tim, we did answer. I think Basant we didn't answer.
I think we answer all of them.
Okay,
And you have
Yeah.
early morning, I think, for you, Karim.
Yeah, it's
no,
4
it's
a.m.
6,
for me.
4 a.m. Also, you fresh, but we all are very tired because we have 9 p.m. So
Okay.
I think
something just I want a small thing I want to add for the notice, Lucia, that the main objective of the notice is two things. First is to give notification to the employer. So if he can do something to give him the knowledge, if he can do something to mitigate the impact of such disruption by his action. So if he could mitigate this, so you give him notification. So you need to take care. There is loss of productivity due to such event, which are caused by the owner or the employer, so he can take actions. So to give him this chance to take actions to mitigate the impact of the disruption event if he is the main cause of this event. Also, and under most of the contracts or under the claim, why notice is important? Because first, the owner or employer will claim for this point. You didn't give me notification to mitigate such. And also, if he has been impacted due to this increase the impact of the event or disruption, increase the losses, so he can claim for this. You increased my losses because you didn't give me a notification that this event is causing loss of productivity or is causing losses to you. Yeah.
So some last words from Karim, and I guess we will all close it for today. We will see everyone probably next week. If anyone would like to hear again about the disruption or specific question, Karim, anything to add?
No, all good. I think
all good.
Yeah. I'm happy if anyone wants to ask a question, just forward. You have our emails and feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, please direct to Rania and Karim. Rania, anything to add?
Thank you, Lucia. I want to thank you so much for moderating this event, and thank you, Karim, and thank you for all the audience. And I hope that we could provide an informative presentation.
Thank you, both of you again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.